Imagine you're cruising down a sunlit highway on a perfect day. The sky is a vivid blue, the road ahead is clear, and every detail around you stands out in sharp clarity. Now imagine having a dash cam that captures that entire scene exactly as you see it. Every color, every movement, every license plate and road sign, as if you had a personal cinematographer riding shotgun. Sounds pretty amazing, right? Well, today we're going to see if the REDTIGER F7NP Dash Cam can live up to that vision. Welcome to the video. In this review, I'm testing the daytime recording quality of the REDTIGER F7NP Dash Cam to find out just how well it performs in real-world daylight conditions. We're not talking spec sheets or controlled lab tests. I'm taking this camera out on the road under the bright sun to see how it handles everyday driving scenarios, from wide-open highways to busy city streets, from direct sunlight to shadowy stretches, and everything in between. Before we jump into the action, a quick heads up. If at any point you're impressed by what you see and you want to check out this dash cam for yourself, I've dropped a special link in the description below. That link will take you to more details about the F7NP, and if you're thinking about getting one, it'll point you in the right direction, and it helps support the channel too. So don't forget to peek at that if you're interested. Alright, seatbelts on, dash cam set up, and the sun is shining. Let's hit the road and see what the REDTIGER F7NP can do in broad daylight. As I pull out of my driveway into the morning light, the F7NP springs to life and begins recording automatically. I've mounted it up behind my rear view mirror, where it's completely out of my line of sight, but has a perfect view of the road ahead. That means as I drive, I can almost forget it's even there, which is exactly what you want a dash cam. It's just silently doing its job, capturing everything. Now let's talk about what this camera is packing, because that sets the stage for the kind of footage we're about to see. The REDTIGER F7NP is built with some serious hardware. It uses a high-quality Sony Starbus image sensor and a 6-layer glass lens with an ultra-large f/1.5 aperture. REDTIGERCam.com. In plain English, that means the camera can capture a lot of detail and light. It also has advanced imaging tech like WDR, wide dynamic range, and HDR built in. REDTIGERCam.com, which help balance out bright and dark areas in the video. All of this tech is working behind the scenes to make sure the picture stays clear and well exposed, even if you're driving from bright sunlight into shade or vice versa. But specs are one thing. The real question is, how does the footage actually look? As soon as I really get going on my drive, I can see the F7NP doing its thing. The camera offers a wide 170 degrees field of view up front. Team-BHP.com, which is immediately noticeable on the dash cam screen and later on my computer. I can see not just my lane, but multiple lanes of traffic and even the sidewalks on either side. It's like a panoramic view of the road. This is great because it means if anything happens off to the side, say a car coming in from a side street or a pedestrian at a crosswalk, the camera is likely to catch it. Despite such a wide angle, the image doesn't look warped or fisheye-like in any distracting way. Straight lines, like lane markings or the curb, stay pretty straight even toward the edges. You get the benefit of that wide coverage without a crazy distortion that some ultra-wide cameras have. Now let's talk clarity. We're recording in Ultra HD 4K resolution here, and the detail is immediately apparent. Even on the dash cam's own small display, which is just a preview, things look sharp. Once I review the footage on a larger screen, I was really impressed. The F7NP's daytime video quality is honestly on par with what you'd expect from a much more expensive camera. In fact, many enthusiasts have noted that the forward video quality from this model is very good in daylight. DashboardCameraReviews.com, and I'm definitely seeing why. The image is crisp from the center to the edges. Distant objects, like cars several lengths ahead or buildings down the road, remain clear. Closer details, say the car right in front of me, are extremely sharp. I can make out little things like the make and model badge on the car ahead, or the phone number on the side of a passing truck. It's that detailed. Colors are another big win. The footage from the F7NP looks natural and true to life. The sky is a rich blue in the video, just like it really was that day. Not an overblown white smear, and not an unnaturally electric blue either. Green trees, red stop signs, yellow lane markings. The camera renders all of them accurately. There's no weird color tinting. Whites look white, and overall the color balance feels very much like what my eyes saw. That's important because it makes the footage easy to interpret later. If you ever need to use this footage for evidence or just to reminisce about a drive, you won't be looking at some oddly tinted video. It'll look realistic. The dynamic range, basically how well the camera handles bright and dark parts of the image at the same time, really stands out during this daytime drive. For example, I drive through a street where one side is brightly lit by the sun and the other side is under the shadow of a row of buildings. Lesser cameras might struggle here. Either the sunny side would be blown out, too bright to see detail, or the shadow side would be too dark. But as you can see in the footage, the F7NP balances it nicely. Thanks to that WDR/HDR technology, it can pull detail from both the highlights and the shadows. I can still see the texture of the buildings on the sunny side and distinguish what's in the shaded areas. When I pass under large trees, the camera doesn't freak out or lose exposure either. It adjusts smoothly, so I go from sunlight to shade and back to sunlight, and the video remains clear throughout. No blown-out highlights, no murky darkness, just a balanced image. For an even more extreme test of lighting, I drove through a short tunnel on my route. As I approached the tunnel, the video gradually brightened so that the dark interior became visible. Inside the tunnel, I could see the walls and the road clearly instead of just a black hole. The moment I emerged back into the bright daylight, the camera instantly readjusted. You can see the exposure dial back down in a split second, preventing any whiteout effect. The transition is so smooth that if you blink, you'd miss the camera compensating. This quick adaptability is great because it means even sudden changes in lighting won't throw off the recording. Now I'm heading onto a wide-open highway around noon. This is a great time to really push the camera's clarity because the sun is almost directly overhead, super bright, and everything is lit well. Here, the F7NP truly shines. No pun intended. The highway signs in the distance, I can read them clearly well before I'm close. As I approach an overhead sign, every letter stands out on the footage. If I pause the video, I can read the exit number and destination names without any trouble. That's a big deal because it shows how much detail the 4K resolution is capturing. With older 1080p dash cams, those distant signs might just be a blur until you're almost right under them. But in this 4K footage, the clarity is on another level. It's the difference between standard definition and high definition. Once you experience it, it's hard to go back. Even the road itself, often something we overlook, is detailed. You can see the lane lines crisp and clear, and even the subtle texture of the asphalt. If there are any potholes or painted markings on the road, they're plainly visible in the recording. Now, that's not just nice for aesthetics. It can matter for evidence too. For instance, if you ran over something or there were skid marks on the road from an earlier incident, the camera would capture those details. It's like having an extra sharp set of eyes recording everything. Speaking of capturing everything, let's talk about moving subjects and how the F7NP handles motion during the day. In broad daylight, the camera has an easier job because there's plenty of light. That means it can use a fast shutter speed for each frame of video, which greatly reduces motion blur. And indeed, when a car speeds by me, I can freeze the video and often still catch a lot of detail on that car. During my test, a motorcycle passed by on the left fairly quickly. I went back frame by frame, and I could make out the logo on the rider's jacket, and even the plate number on the bike without much issue. That's impressive. If something happens, like a car running a red light in front of you, there's a good chance this dash cam will capture the critical details, even if it's a fast-moving scenario. You might only have a frame or two where a license plate is visible, but those frames are clear. Now, the F7NP records at 30 frames per second in 4K, which is standard and makes the motion look smooth to the eye. 30 frames per second is generally enough that the video doesn't appear choppy at all. Watching the playback, everything moves naturally. However, one feature I appreciate is that the camera offers alternative resolutions and frame rates if needed. You can actually choose to drop the resolution to 2560 by 1440, 2.5K, and get 60 frames per second, or even down to 1920 by 1080 for a super smooth 120 frames per second. TechPP.com. That's a pretty cool option to have. For example, if you were going to take your car to a track day, or you anticipate a lot of fast action and you value ultra-smooth video, You might use 60 frames per second or 120 frames per second mode. And at 120 frames per second, you could do neat slow motion replays of something if you wanted to. For my normal driving, I stick with 4K at 30 frames per second because I want that maximum detail, and 30 frames per second is already doing a great job with motion. But it's nice to know the F7NP gives you the flexibility. Very few dash cams have a 120 frames per second option, so that's a noteworthy bonus for those who care about that sort of thing. Alright, let's talk about one of the most important aspects for a dash cam: the ability to capture license plates and other crucial details. After all, the main reason a lot of us get a dash cam is to have evidence in case something happens. Daytime is usually the best case scenario for catching plate numbers, and this camera does not disappoint. When I'm behind another car, I can clearly read its license plate on the screen and in the footage. For instance, sitting at a red light, the car ahead of me was maybe 2 or 3 car lengths away, roughly about 10 to 15 meters, and the plate was crystal clear in the recording. REDTIGER actually advertises that in good daylight conditions, you should be able to see license plate information at around 15 meters distance. RedTigerCam.com. And that seems spot on. In my experience, as long as you're within that range and not moving super fast relative to the other vehicle, the F7NP will capture the plate info clearly. Of course, if a vehicle is much farther away than that, its plate will be too small to make out. That's true of any dash cam. But any car that's close enough to be interacting with you on the road is close enough for this camera to record its details. And it's not just the car right in front of you. Even oncoming vehicles. Say there's a car coming toward me on the other side of the road. As long as the closing speed isn't too extreme, I often see that the dash cam grabs a legible shot of their plate too, perhaps just in one frame. But that's enough. It's pretty impressive. I've also noticed that the camera handles reflective glare on things like license plates pretty well. Sometimes in bright sun, a plate can flash or reflect a lot of light. In my test, most plates remain readable even when sunlit. I only saw a bit of reflection when the angle was just unlucky, like the sun reflecting directly off a very shiny plate. But generally, it's fine. At night, it can be a different story with headlights causing reflections, but during the day, no issues. In fact, one user review I read mentioned this dash cam has excellent plate readability in both day and night. Team-bhp.com. And I'm seeing the daytime part of that claim proven true. If the head-on sun glare is something you're worried about, you can actually use an optional CPL, polarizing, filter accessory to cut down those reflections. I didn't use one here, but even without it, I found the footage remained plenty clear. I should mention that, like most dash cams, you might catch a faint reflection of your own dashboard on the windshield in some lighting conditions. In my car, there were moments when a subtle outline of the dashboard was visible on the video. It wasn't distracting or obscuring anything crucial, but it's there. Using a CPL filter can help reduce that dash reflection too, by filtering out the polarized light coming off the dashboard. Even without a filter, though, the main view of the road stayed dominant and clear. Those little reflections were minor, and I mostly noticed them only when I was specifically looking for them. Now, how about everything else in the scene? One thing I love about reviewing this footage is that it makes you feel like you're sitting in the car again. The F7NP captures such a wide view and so much detail that when I play it back, it's like reliving the drive. I see cars in adjacent lanes. I see a kid on a bicycle off to the right. I see the traffic light up ahead turn from green to yellow. The clarity and the wide angle together give you that immersive feeling. If you've ever watched those dash cam compilation videos online, you know sometimes the quality can be hit or miss, grainy footage, shaky cams, etc. With this dash cam's daytime quality, it looks smooth and stable. The camera is firmly mounted, in my case, up by the rearview mirror, and even going over bumps or rough roads, the video doesn't shake like crazy. The picture stays nice and stable. There's no fancy gimbal or optical stabilization in this unit, but honestly it doesn't need it for dash cam purposes, because the secure mount and the wide field of view already keep the image steady enough. Let's switch environments a bit. I leave the highway and head into downtown, where tall buildings cast long shadows across the road. It's still bright out, but now there's more contrast as sunlight peeks between buildings. The camera continues to adapt well. As I go through patches of sunlight and shade, You can probably notice the video remains consistent. I'm not seeing any drastic shifts in brightness or any lag in adjusting exposure. It's pretty much instantaneous. Even under the shade, the footage isn't dull. It still retains good color and visibility. The car in front of me goes into a shadow, and I can still clearly see its paint color and the details on its bumper. This is where that wide dynamic range feature really helps again, balancing those high contrast areas. While in the city, I also have the chance to capture more diverse scenes. People crossing the street, storefront signs, and lots of other vehicles around me. The dash cam picks up all of it. For instance, I passed by a storefront with a bright neon sign and a printed name board above it. Looking at the video later, I could actually read the store's name and even some of the smaller text on that sign. Mind you, I wasn't staring at it while driving, eyes on the road, but the camera caught it in the background. That's the beauty of having extra resolution. You can later inspect things that you might not have even noticed in the moment. It's like having a backup memory that's clearer than your own sometimes. Now, at one point during my city drive, a car from a side street merged in a bit suddenly ahead of me. This wasn't a crash or anything, just someone pulling out quickly, but it was a great test for the dash cam's ability to capture a quick motion coming from the side. The wide-angle lens had no problem catching that car entering from the right. In the video, you see them come into frame smoothly. And even though that car was just a blur in my peripheral vision while I was driving, on the playback I can pause right as they appear and clearly see the make of the car and yes, the license plate as well. It's reassuring to know that if that had been a close call or something more serious, I'd have had it clearly on video. So far, I've been focusing on the front camera, which is the star of the show with its 4K quality. It's worth mentioning that the F7NP model also comes with a rear camera module that records in 1080p Full HD. I did hook up the rear cam for this test, as well to see how it compares. As expected, the rear camera's footage isn't as tack sharp as the front. 1080p versus 4K is a big difference in detail, but it's still pretty decent for a rear view. In broad daylight, the rear camera captures the cars behind me with enough clarity to see what's going on. You can tell the make and color of the car, and you can read the license plate of the vehicle directly behind me when I'm at a stop or in slow traffic. It has a slightly narrower field of view, about 140 degrees to the rear. Team-bhp.com, which is still plenty to cover the whole scene behind my car. The exposure and colors on the rear cam match the front fairly well, so switching between front and rear footage in the video isn't jarring at all. If you're mainly concerned with the front footage, you're not sacrificing any quality there by having the rear attached. The rear is just a bonus angle. But it's nice to have that rear view for context or if something happens behind you. For example, if someone were to bump me from behind, I'd have that recorded too, and in daytime the 1080p rear cam is up to the task of capturing the important details. In essence, it's like having a second set of eyes at the back of your head. Sure, the rear camera isn't as detailed as the front one, but for most purposes it's solid during daylight and definitely better than not having a rear view at all. Let's talk about how the footage holds up when you view it back on different devices, because this also adds to the overall experience. On the dash cam's built-in screen, you get a live view that's obviously scaled down, but it's enough to confirm that yes, it's recording and that you've got the angle you want. I also connected my phone via the dash cam's Wi-Fi to quickly peek at a clip while I was parked. It looked good on the phone, but the real treat was pulling the memory card and watching the footage on my computer monitor at full 4K resolution. On a large screen, the videos from the F7NP look fantastic. If you have a 4K TV or monitor, you can really appreciate all that detail it's capturing. I was able to pause and take some screenshots from the video, and those still images look like photographs taken on a mid-range dedicated camera, very detailed and clean. The manufacturer even provides a special video player for PC to make sure you see the clips in the best quality. REDTIGERcam.com. I tried it out, and I noticed the playback was smooth and that the GPS data overlays from the dash cam worked nicely in that player. Bottom line, the footage quality holds up even when you scrutinize it on a big screen. This isn't one of those cameras where the video only looks okay on a phone, but then falls apart into blocky pixels on a large monitor. It's genuinely high enough quality that you could use in a YouTube video, as I'm doing, or confidently hand it over to the authorities as evidence if you ever needed to. Now, I know I'm praising the quality a lot, But to be fair, let me mention any downsides I noticed during this daytime test. Honestly, in daylight, there's not much to complain about. If I nitpick, occasionally, if the sun hits something like a license plate or another car's windshield at just the wrong angle, that spot could get a bit overexposed for a moment. Basically a quick flash of glare. That's almost unavoidable with any camera, though. And with the F7NP, it was rare and very brief when it happened. Also, the extreme edges of that wide-angle view can be a touch softer than the center. I had to really look for that. It's nothing that would affect capturing an incident. You probably wouldn't notice it at all unless you were pausing the video and zooming in on the far corners of the frame. These are very minor issues in the grand scheme of things, and the overall performance far outweighs them. As the day went on, I also drove through a section of road that was partly cloudy. The sun would duck behind clouds and then peek out again. It was a good test of the auto exposure and color consistency. Each time the lighting changed, the camera adjusted gracefully. The whole sky might go dim or suddenly brighten, but it didn't cause the video to wash out or plunge into darkness. It just smoothly adapted. In fact, the footage under the light cloud cover was just as detailed, and with the sun diffused by the clouds, there were fewer harsh shadows, so it actually looked really nice. Colors were a bit more muted, as you'd expect with less direct sun, but the camera accurately captured that look. It didn't try to overcorrect by pumping up the brightness or saturation. What I saw with my eyes is what I got on the video. By late afternoon, the sunlight had that golden hue. It's still daytime, but the color of the light turns warmer and more amber. I was curious how the dash cam would handle that shift in color temperature. Interestingly, the F7NP captured it exactly as it looked. The video during that golden hour drive had a warm tint, just like reality. Some cameras might neutralize that and make the scene look more normal, but I actually like that this dash cam preserved the atmosphere. Even with the sun lower in the sky, which meant sometimes I was driving directly toward the sun as I headed west, the camera still coped well with the challenge. In one clip, you can see the sun in the frame as a big bright glare. Naturally, that portion of the image is blown out. No camera can see detail right in front of the setting sun. But importantly, the surrounding areas are still visible. The nearby cars, the street ahead, the traffic lights, you can still see all of that, and they're not just silhouettes against the light. I could even read the plate of the car in front of me, despite the sun being in the top of the frame. That's pretty impressive. There was a bit of lens flare, a slight haze from the intense light, but nothing that prevented me from seeing what was happening on the road. It's about as good as you can expect any camera to handle driving straight into the sun. Throughout all these scenarios, one thing remained consistent. The REDTIGER F7NP Dash Cam reliably captured everything without any hiccups. The video files saved correctly. I didn't encounter any missing segments or weird glitches. The camera splits the recording into manageable clips. I set mine to 3-minute loops for continuous recording, and each clip transitioned seamlessly to the next. Watching them back to back, you wouldn't notice any gap at the clip boundaries. It's rock solid in terms of performance. I even checked the camera unit after a long drive. It was warm to the touch, which is normal, since it doesn't use an internal battery and is powered by the car. Some heat is expected, but it never overheated or shut down. It just kept running without complaint. The audio was on for some of the drive as well, and though I'm not playing it in this video, I listened to it. It captured my turn signal ticking, the low hum of the engine, and even a bit of wind noise when I had a window cracked. Not much to analyze there except to say the microphone works fine. It's not the focus of a dash cam, but it's good that it records decent sound if you need it. Now, stepping back from all the technical details, how do I feel about the REDTIGER F7NP after seeing its daytime footage? In a word, confident. Confident that if I'm out driving on a beautiful day or even a hectic day, this dash cam is going to record exactly what's happening in front of me and do so in high quality. The video I got is definitely something I'd be happy, or at least relieved, to hand over if I ever needed to prove what happened in a situation. And it's also something I'd be excited to show friends if I capture a cool roadside site or a scenic drive, because the quality is that good. One thing that struck me while reviewing all this daytime footage is that it's not just useful for insurance or evidence. It actually makes for enjoyable video memories too. The quality is good enough that you could use this dash cam footage almost like a travel vlog of your drive. In fact, I found myself saving a couple of the clips not because anything special happened in them, but just because they were visually nice to look at. A dash cam like this can capture a scenic coastal highway or a mountain road in beautiful detail. If you're someone who likes recording road trips, the F7NP will make sure you come home with stunning footage of your journey. The wide-angle lens gives that sweeping view, and the 4K clarity means even distant mountains or fields of flowers along the road are going to be visible in the video. It really adds extra value beyond just safety. It turns your car into a rolling camera for documenting adventures. Of course, the primary job of a dash cam is safety and accountability. And having reviewed this daytime footage, I can confidently say the F7NP delivers on that front as well. If, knock on wood, something were to happen, like a car cutting you off or an accident up ahead, you have a reliable witness in this camera. The video quality is so clear that there's little room for ambiguity. You can show exactly where each vehicle was and what happened. For example, in one of my test clips, a car abruptly changed lanes without signaling. On the footage, it's very obvious what they did. You can even tell their turn signal never came on. If that had resulted in a fender bender, the blame would be clearly captured on video. Having high resolution means you might catch things like a driver's hand motions or the moment a phone was in someone's hand, details that could be important in understanding an incident. And because the colors and lighting are true to life, even things like traffic light colors or brake lights are accurately recorded. If you ever needed to present this to law enforcement or an insurance company, they get a clear picture of the situation. It gives you peace of mind knowing that during your daytime drives, this dash cam has your back and is recording everything in such high quality. To sum it all up, the REDTIGER F7NP Dash Cam really impressed me with its daytime performance. It delivered sharp, vibrant, and clear video in every scenario I threw at it, and it handled tough lighting conditions like a champ. If you're looking for a dash cam that can capture your daytime drives in superb quality, this one absolutely fits the bill. Now, if you like what you saw in this video and you're thinking you might want that same level of clarity and peace of mind for yourself, I highly encourage you to check out the REDTIGER F7NP via the link in the description. Seriously, go ahead and click that link. It'll take you to all the details, and you can see the current pricing and maybe even snag a deal. Seeing is believing with this kind of footage, and that link has more info if you're ready to take the plunge or just want to learn more. Thank you so much for joining me on this daytime test drive with the REDTIGER Dash Cam. I hope this detailed look made you feel like you were right there in the passenger seat, seeing what I saw. If you found this review helpful or enjoyable, please give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions about the camera or want to share your own experiences, drop a comment below. I always love hearing from you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more gadget reviews and dashcam tests. We've got more content on the way, including how this camera performs at night, so stay tuned for that as well. Alright, that's it for today. Drive safe, and until next time, take care. And remember, if you want to capture your own rides in beautiful quality like this, check out that link in the description. Happy driving!